Hi guys, welcome back to the ProTech podcast. This is episode 5 and today we're going to be talking about online grooming. And as you can see, we have some really special guests with us. It's a team from Flag Your It. So we have Stephanie.
Hi.
And we have Vanessa.
Hello.
We have Esther.
Hi guys.
And Vinice. And your regular host, Thulasi.
Hi.
Jay. And me, Raphaela. Yeah, so would you guys like to introduce your project to us? Like, tell us what you've been up to and what it's about?
Yeah, sure. So we call ourselves Flag Your It. It's a campaign on the prevention of online child grooming in Singapore. So we're defining that as when a predator online forms a trusting and emotional relationship with the goal of sexually manipulating the other party, more often than not someone who is younger than the predator itself. Yep. And I think online child grooming is a topic that hasn't really been talked about a lot in Singapore. So it's something that we were particularly interested in raising awareness towards because this was a topic of discussion when we were thinking about what we wanted to do for our final year campaign in school. And upon further research, we actually found really, really shocking statistics. So one of which is 2 in 3 secondary school students in Singapore actually receive unwanted sexual content online. And 1 in 2 have also been approached by strangers online for personal information. So these are not particularly targeted at sexual grooming itself, but after we did and ran some in-depth interviews with secondary school students, actually more than half had a story to share with us about either they themselves have been sexually manipulated online, or they have had a friend who came close to being sexually manipulated online.
I think even before this before this recording, you guys also mentioned that that you guys didn't know, until you guys came to our exhibition, you guys didn't know that like this is such a prevalent issue, right? What do you guys think of our exhibition when you guys came?
Yeah, I think it was really, really cool because, like, first of all, we've never I've never really explored this topic. So when I went to the thing and I saw like all the stories that you guys had on the, the line thing, and then you had like the stuff pinned up.
True.
Yeah, it was like crazy. Like, I did not expect this to be such a big issue in Singapore. But yeah, I think it was really good because it was eye-opening for like all the people that came to visit. And it was really informative as well. So I think it was really good.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think grooming is something that's it's a very underground topic even till now. And that's really because similar to sexual assault, grooming is something that's very difficult for victims to open up, because victim blaming is still a very prevalent thing in Singapore, even though we have like things like the Me Too movement. Also, I think grooming is a little bit more complicated than that because the victim was a willing participant in the whole relationship and the whole process. So therefore, a lot of people feel like you were the one who put yourself in that situation. And that's because I think it's very difficult for us or outsiders to understand how predators actually manipulated the victim into thinking that this is a consensual and healthy relationship. Therefore, the victim was a willing participant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why maybe when we started our whole like campaign on Instagram also, and then on Instagram that's where we kind of like talk about what is online grooming and like what are some signs and all that. So we actually received quite a number of people who reach out to us, like not just as victims but as like friends who are concerned about their friends, or and even during like sometimes you also receive like stories of victims who reach out to us and say that this campaign, like it really helped them to kind of like recognize that they are in a manipulative relationship.
What difficulties have you guys faced like during this campaign? Like, is it really hard to get people to try like engage in your campaign because it's such a taboo topic,
I think precisely because it's such a taboo topic, that's why it was very difficult for us to think about how we wanted to frame the whole topic. I think one key concern was that we wanted our content to be broadcasted in schools, so we couldn't make it overly explicit. We also had to be cautious of like how sexual topics are broached in secondary schools, as well as how cyberbullying, sorry, not cyberbullying, but like cyber wellness topics are talked about in school. That's one of the challenge. The other challenge is we really wanted to work with as many organizations as possible, but because grooming isn't talked about a lot, there was a lot of educational work to be done on both like our part as well as the companies that we're trying to bring on board. And at the same time, I think no tech company wants to admit that there are predators on their platforms. So for us to want to reach out to certain social media outlets to say, hey, let's collaborate to do like an educational awareness campaign, there was quite a lot of pushback because it's a sensitive topic and they don't want it so public that, you know, oh, my platform, many youths are on it, and at the same time we have many predators on it targeting them too.
Yeah, I think like another issue that we were facing was that a lot of these grooming examples, they were from overseas. So they were situations that happened in UK, US, and I think like grooming in Singapore is very different in a sense like how groomers reach out to their victims and how they target them. So for us, we didn't start off with that many stories, and we really wanted to localize these situations of grooming because when we interviewed secondary school kids, they said that, oh, I don't think that it's happening that frequently because I just don't hear about it. But we wanted to share their stories. So we wanted to do that through our campaign. Yeah.
Why should we even care about sexual grooming?
First of all, because like I don't know if you have noticed, but there has been like a rise of like there has been an increase of like a lot of news articles talking about grooming cases of how like how adults have been like sort of like
Using social
like
media.
using social media to target minors. And definitely it's because of social media. Like even just today there was this news article on this adult who approached a 10-year-old girl on TikTok, I think. Was it TikTok? Yeah. So definitely of course we're not saying that don't use social media. That is definitely not the message that we are trying to get across. But I think it's very important for teens to know what kind of dangers there are out there, and like grooming is definitely one of them. Yeah. And the fact is that like grooming is, online grooming is something that the school is teaching about, that schools are teaching about. But probably because like what Esther said, the stories that they talk about in class are from overseas, and there's not really no like localized context. That's why I think that's why Flag Your It is probably is here. Yeah, there's a purpose for Flag Your It to be here, to like bring stories and to bring more information that is contextualized in Singapore to teens. Yeah.
You guys mentioned like TikTok and other platforms, right? Do you think like the platform you use changes like what kind of grooming experience you have, or like is Instagram more vulnerable for this kind of issue, or like do you guys have anything about that?
I think as long as you're online, you're probably at risk. I think predators don't just live in like a certain type of platform. So we've got victims who reached out to us and they probably met their groomers via Instagram, or victims who have met their groomers via online gaming. But probably the way that they approach you may be a bit different. Like for Instagram, they probably slide into your DMs and they talk about your daily life and say like, oh, I saw that you just went to this place. Is it nice? So it's very like lifestyle questions. But maybe for online gaming, maybe they are trying to be your teammate or trying to give you gifts on games lah. And if your account is public, I think it's also a dangerous risk that you are taking because the groomers are able to profile you and understand where your vulnerabilities are, or they just try to like have some sort of like common interests or common topics to speak to you about. Yeah. So I think regardless of any app, right, there will be some sort of risk. Yeah, but I think we all have different opinions about that also. Perhaps like on TikTok, it's also a bit scarier because now you see a lot of very like sexy trends, on being on TikTok, and I think a lot of like predators are like lurking and looking at your videos. Yeah.
Do you think that the issue of like sexual grooming has worsened due to the internet? Because it's now easier to access like minors and stuff, right? Like sexual grooming has always existed, but do you think it has worsened because of the internet?
I think it definitely made it much easier for groomers to reach out to their victims, because it's not only them, like it's not only the physical realm now, but it's the online realm, and like having all of these channels definitely makes it easier for groomers to access that information, as mentioned previously, and that's where the profiling starts. So actually, a lot of people shared with us via DM, or like they just wrote into us saying that grooming happened to them before. And maybe I'll share one story with you guys. Like, so there was this girl, so she'll be kept anonymous, but there was this girl who actually met this guy on a messaging platform, and then they became really close friends because like at that point in time, she said that he was her only friend. So I think like getting to know each other and like talking so regularly from like when you wake up to when you sleep, it really gives a lot of information to groomers. And because of that, like she really trusted him, and she had faith that he could be her comfort when she really needed it. So ultimately, she said that he will always ask for requests, and sometimes it will lead to like sexual requests, such as like sending nudes and asking for more. And she said she always felt like she had to give in because they really developed such like a trusting relationship, and she had so much connection with him that she felt like if she didn't give in to his request, that ultimately she will lose him as a friend. So I think grooming can have many impacts such as this, and it's really like people who put themselves online and like are already in a vulnerable position. It makes them it makes groomers like it makes it so much easier for groomers to reach out to them. And I definitely think that with the whole online realm now, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it's very easy for groomers to reach out to victims.
Yeah, and also like the fact that they can hide their faces, right? And you don't actually know who you're talking to on the other side. Like that makes it really scary.
So it's also not just social media. There are like you can also be a target of grooming on like gaming platforms. Like I think there's also this huge myth that girls are usually the targets of grooming, but that's not true at all. Like we have received stories from the guy's point of view. This guy, he was like, I think he was playing a game or something. Like he met he met someone on through this through a gaming platform, and because like this person was kept like offering him like gifts and like skins and like offer to like train him, and so it's like over time it builds the victim and the predator like kind of like build this like really emotional like relationship that is based on like trust and time, and so it's like ultimately when things escalate into like when the groomer offered like us to meet up, and eventually when the guy got touched, that's when it's hard to notice like all the red flags when you're actually in that relationship. So it's not just like social media platforms, but also like great gaming as well.
I was just gonna ask, you mentioned like girls are not more vulnerable, but it's like both ways, right? Do you think there's any specific age group which is like more vulnerable, or is it all across like teenagers in general?
I think like Vinice said, as long as you're online, you're definitely at risk. But our campaign targeted particularly kids between 13 to 17, which is secondary school as well as JC and poly as well. And I think that's because this is the age where we really start getting interested in making friends online and also exploring relationships. So when you're in that area of exploring, questioning your own sexual identity, what's love, what relationships are, that's when you are more willing to speak to strangers online, more willing to make different connections, and that puts you at higher risk. Yeah, that's why we particularly targeted 13 to 17. But I think younger kids as well, we're all getting online at a much younger age. So I think Singapore, if I'm not wrong, our kids go online. We are one of the youngest at 8 years old. And that's worrying and very concerning because I think we don't have enough safeguards in place. One of which starts from our parents actually, but our parents, they themselves aren't really like experts in navigating the online world. A lot of parents who visit our exhibition were completely shocked that such things are happening, and they said that like they gotta go home and like have a talk with their kids and ask like what have they been experiencing and who they have been talking to. Like for my dad, when I was telling him about my campaign, he got a shock and he asked me like, is this something that happened to you when you were younger? Like you can tell me anything. Then I'm like, no. But yeah, I mean with parents, like it's very difficult for us to even share that we are interested or we like someone, much less like we're having an explicit conversation or like a romantic conversation with someone online. Although our campaign only targeted like secondary school students, we do hope in our second phase to target like a lot more beyond just kids themselves, but parents as well.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of leads on to our next question, just like how should parents deal with these kind of issues? Like, is there any like to prevent it, and like afterwards, how can they help?
I think the first thing that parents should do is to stay calm and collected, like cool-headed. If like they know if like their child happened to tell them, this thing happened to me. Because I think one thing about parents is that, when something happens to their children and then immediately they will confiscate their phones or whatever. And that's the exact opposite of what anyone would want, right?
Asian parents.
Yeah, so I think for parents, I think I guess that's why it's important for parents to also kind of like keep up with like certain digital risk. And I think that's why, like, when parents come to our exhibition, after going through the whole exhibition, they talk to us and they say that, this is actually a very interesting topic that I think I will be having a conversation with my children. Yeah, so I think this is the kind of behavior that we want parents to have, is to really just have like conversations and not and have like an honest conversation with them and not establish some sort of like authority over them. And yeah.
Yeah, I think for like younger children, maybe like parents can do a lot, like for example downloading like screen time management apps or something, which can also like just overall like control the child's activity on social media. Do you think that would be useful, like having like the parent just like monitor and control what we're doing to like prevent this kind of stuff from happening at a young age?
I think for those who are younger, I think parents would definitely resort to such apps, but I don't think teenagers, they would appreciate their parents controlling their screen time. Yeah, I think it will just make them a bit more rebellious. I think when we were all teens, when parents tell us, hey, you don't do this, then it's like the more you want, right? Yeah, so I think having not everybody would be lucky enough to have like a healthy, open relationship with the parents about it. So I think that's why it's also very important for us to get friends to be that mediator. If your friend has just told you about this and you think that an adult should know about it, and maybe your friend is a bit afraid to tell their parents about it, maybe you can go and talk to a teacher or talk to like a professional, like a counselor. Yeah.
I have a question actually. So, do you think that the reason there isn't more communication between parents and the children about, online grooming and all this is because there's a lack of education about this happening in Singapore? Because we discussed about how a lot of examples come from overseas and how many people don't even realize that it's happening in Singapore. So, do you think that contributes to the fact that there's not much communication?
Yeah, I think education is one, and also perhaps it's because like it's a very conservative society in Singapore.
Yeah, I think we need a lot more education in terms of like how we should even start these conversations. It's very difficult. I think parents can also like play a more active role in opening up to their kids and bringing up casual conversations in terms of like what they've read in the news, because grooming isn't something that the media has actually brought up sexual grooming before. They might not have explicitly said this is sexual grooming, but there are lots of cases where, an older male or female is actually taking advantage of kids online. And I think like these are just simple news articles that parents can just like bring up as topics, over family dinners and stuff. Because we actually use these articles and make them into like more bite-sized, digestible content on our Instagram, and the response was great. Like people actually loved reading these stories, but it's because they aren't on like the Straits Times or Today Online. That's why they aren't seeing these. But our parents are, and like they can do a lot more in like contributing to this whole topic of like educating the society. Yeah.
What is the best way to identify sexual grooming and like how to safeguard yourself?
Yeah, like how do you differentiate between like just someone trying to be friends with you online or like, when you're getting sexually groomed?
I think this is especially tricky because like there's a very gray zone between like having an online friend and actually talking to someone who's a groomer. So I think like it's really by case basis, and we can't really spot like we can't really for sure say that, oh, this is a grooming situation. But some signs that we can that we have actually shared with our followers and the teams that sorry. Yes, basically. We shared with them some signs. So one of them is like, if you see a friend who's like receiving gifts that they can't really afford, then maybe you should ask them like, oh, did somebody give that to you? Because groomers sometimes they use this tactic of gifting to get their victims, to give it to their victims. And then another one is that sometimes victims, they tend to know more than they should, like in terms of sexual education, because these groomers, they inject sexual language into their conversations, and from there they are victims tend to be more sexually mature because they are exposed to these terms and these languages. Yeah. And then victims also tend to show like they tend to be more isolated when they are in a grooming situation, because like naturally they'll feel like they want to be more secretive about it because it's not like a typical relationship, and they are unsure of it because it's probably their first encounter with a romantic relationship of sorts. Yeah, so there are quite a few signs that we can actually see whether someone is being groomed and if there is a groomer in their lives. Yeah.
So I have like a related question to that, because I have a lot of like 16-year-old friends that are dating people who are 18, 19, and that's a romantic relationship. So how would you differentiate like someone who is trying to like pursue you romantically but like not sexually groom you, and someone who's trying to sexually groom you? Because both, like, do you get what I mean? Because like both have like that element. So how would you differentiate between those two?
I think we got this question a lot of times, and even this question from guys, like, because they were worried that, hey, if I slide into a girl's DM, am I grooming them? Like, is complimenting a girl like grooming them too? So it definitely first starts with intention, like, what are your intentions when you are actually speaking to someone of the opposite gender or the same gender? And the second thing is, as an individual, I think it's very important for you to define your own personal boundaries, what you're comfortable with in a relationship and what you're not. And always communicate this actively with your partner. And if your partner is actually crossing those lines and doesn't respect those lines, then he or she might be trying to manipulate you into like pushing past your boundaries. And grooming is a very gray area. There's no like black and white in terms of like, oh, this is grooming, this is not, this is manipulative, and this is not. That's why we always encourage people who are feeling uncomfortable to seek a second opinion. Just a lot of our victims actually said that they only realized they were in a unhealthy or manipulative relationship after speaking to a friend about it, because it gave them a new perspective. So I think that's very, very important, hearing like what your friends have to say about this relationship, and overall just getting a second opinion.
As a friend of these victims, if you identify that they are being sexually groomed, what can you do?
I think it's definitely like not easy for a person who's being groomed to actually speak out about this whole situation, because they might feel embarrassed, or they might feel like, oh, I'm actually like a willing party, so is it me that's at fault? So I think like as a friend, what we can all do is to really have open conversations, and it doesn't need to directly go into it like, oh, are you being groomed? I think you're being groomed. It could really start off with like, oh, how are you doing? Is there anything that you want to talk about? And I think like from these like small steps, it can really like building trust really helps friends open up with each other. And yeah, that's also what we also try to share at Flat Your It, that if you think that your friend's being groomed, then just like be a friend and like share your opinion, and like share what you think about what's going on with their relationship, as long as they are open and like willing to share with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think on this note, like if your friend happen to like already know that he or she is in a grooming relationship, I think there are like some things that you can do. So like firstly, let them know that they done the right thing by opening up, because it really took them a lot of courage to share about their situation. And I think it's also important to know like what kind of helplines there are out there for them to get professional help also. And it's also very important for for minors in general to know what are their rights, like for example like this person, like an adult might get charged if they were to send you like sexually explicit messages actually to like a minor. Yeah, like sexual communication based on the sexual communication laws. Yeah.
And I think one other thing is, I think in general, like we can all help to show or create like safe spaces for victims by just talking about like, what you're doing online. Maybe like you received a weird message from someone and just sharing it with a friend. Because maybe like personally, I feel that if I know my friend's stance and opinion on sexual grooming, it will be a lot easier for me to decide whether like she or he is someone I can trust with like what I've been facing behind the screens. And that's actually what we were hoping to do with our game, Candid Chats. So it's like a conversation starter game. And Steph, you wanna share how you were inspired?
Right. So like Vanessa mentioned, we actually have this card game called Candid Chat. It's basically the intention is to facilitate. Oh yes, and Esther is holding up, and Vanessa is holding up. Yeah, the card game. So it's basically like a game to facilitate like conversations about not just like online grooming, but like on relationships and like the boundaries that you have with your friends or your partners or whatever. So so we actually came up with this idea from like a video from making a video about our one of our victims' story. So we thought that like having some like cue cards of questions containing questions would really facilitate this whole like story, and like getting them to talk a little bit more about their thoughts and like their reflection on like their relationship with as a victim. So that's how we started. So that's how we started to have like kind of this concept of having this conversation card game, if you can say that, with like 3 levels. Like first is small talk. So the questions, it starts off. Esther, do you want to read out like one question from small talk?
One question is like, what's the creepiest thing someone has said to you online?
Yeah, so it starts out like like really like very like casual kind of like level, and then the second level is real talk. So it kind of like goes a little bit deeper and deeper, and the third level is heart to heart talk. So that's where we really delve into more of like questions where you may or may not share, but you might probably share with like a group of like close friends, like at a sleepover party, who knows. Yeah, so that's our card game. And I think when we let this group of secondary school students try it, I think we actually got some pretty interesting questions, and I think it's also like a really fun like game for them to know a little bit more about how they interact with people on social media. I think that was something that that we expected, but we didn't expect so much to come out from this game. So yeah, feel free to check out our Candy Chat's card game. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I tried out the online version, like I just like saw a few cards and I realized that it made me reflect a lot. Like when I looked at the questions, I never before had a reason to think about the way I interact with people online, or like what kind of messages that I received. And I think just looking at those gave way for a lot of introspection. I think that's really good. Yeah, I think the questions are really well crafted.
Yeah, do you guys have anything to say to like, so our target audience is basically like 10 to 12-year-olds. So do you guys have anything to say to them?
I think at this age it's always good to, explore and like learn a lot of things. But it's always good to have like try to build up a good support system for you to always turn to when you're in need of like questions or like uncertainty. Yeah, but I think at this age I think it's still good for you to like just like learn and just like I think it's okay to make friends. Definitely just know your boundaries and like what you are comfortable with.
I just want to say like to these 10 to 12-year-old kiddos, like if they actually encounter any uncomfortable situations, then like all you need to do is to flag it out. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, that's the best wrap up possible.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on our podcast. It's been great to have you guys. Like the people who have actually researched a lot into this and really are passionate about this issue.
Yeah, it's been great meeting you guys.
Very, very useful things. I've learned a lot from this meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Have a great night, guys.
You too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the best.
Thank you, you too.